What goes on and what people are smoking at AMD's pricing division, it baffles me sometimes. I can't figure it out really, because we just came from reviewing the RX 7800 XT, the 16GB, and I thought that was a really good value card for what it was. In fact, I thought it's AMD's best launch this year for a GPU, and probably the best launch for a GPU out of all the three companies, Intel, Nvidia, and AMD. But then we look at this, and this one goes from the best to the worst very quickly with the RX 7700 XT. I mean, this card right here is $50 cheaper, but you're going to see in a lot of the graphs that we're going to pull up here, especially we'll start with the 1080p results, it falls a long way behind the RX 7800 XT, it's only $50 more, and it also comes close to, say, an RTX 3070, which is similar to an RTX 4060 Ti, and the value proposition versus, say, the RX 6700 XT is looking really bad, considering that's a GPU as well with 12GB of VRAM. So already, in ways, I feel really sorry for ASRock because they've done a phenomenal job on this Phantom Gaming OC model here in terms of temperatures, noise, and also aesthetics. It's literally the best card that I think they've made to date. It's just a shame that its proposition on the RX 7700 XT goes to a lot of waste. However, when it comes to the bad value proposition of the RX 7700 XT, that's not even half of it. Let's get through the rest of the results, look at undervolting and all that other goodness, and we'll come back with a conclusion. If you want to get Windows 10 Pro activated for as little as $15 or Windows 11 Pro for as little as $21, then today's video sponsor SCD Keys has you covered. Use that coupon code BFTYC for a big 30% discount and the link in the description below. So coming off those 1080p numbers, 2 of the 5 titles I tested here showed decent performance for AMD, and one of those was the AMD sponsored title Starfield, and also Cyberpunk in terms of raw performance with no ray tracing on was looking pretty good too. 1440p is a very similar story, where the RX 7800 XT is just performing way better than that $50 premium, and my eyes just keep looking at the differences between these two cards because there's not such a big difference in price. But if we look at the worst case scenario here, I believe it would come from Fortnite, where people in the comments were saying the Fortnite performance is pretty bad for these new graphics cards released from AMD, and I didn't really notice it with the RX 7800 XT. I thought that performed okay, given that cards are going to have some good titles and some bad titles. But then when we look at the RX 7700 XT, it's barely beating out an RTX 3070, and that's a card that you can pick up off the used market for an absolute bargain, and it's barely beating out the RX 6700 XT. So there's not a whole lot of value to be had if you're playing certain titles, and Fortnite being one of those really popular titles. However, moving on to the 4K results now and going through these 5 titles shows that, again, it just gets even worse than 1440p and 1080p when we're looking at the differences between the 7800 XT versus the 7700 XT. So when it comes to the raw rasterization performance, without even turning any ray tracing on, there's just no point in buying this card, even from an AMD card. If you want to go with AMD, when you've got, say, an RX 6700 XT coming in a shade over $300 right now, having the same amount of VRAM, and as we'll get into the power consumption results right now, giving out good power efficiency. So the step up from RDNA 2 to 3 wasn't that big in terms of power efficiency for AMD, but then if we look at the 7800 XT, that's got similar power consumption results as the 7700 XT and offers more performance. So you're getting better efficiency, better performance, and much better value on that higher SKU card, which generally in the GPU space, for all the time I've been in this and been a PC enthusiast, I've never seen going from a mid-range card to, say, a mid-upper high-range card and getting better value, and not just better value, much better value. So I don't know if this is just me, but I'm looking at these charts and I'm looking at the 449 and I keep staring at it. I'm like, why AMD? Why not make this at least a 399 card, and then we can get back to talking about, okay, is it good at 399? So this, in my opinion, needs an immediate $50 price cut, even for raw rasterization performance. And now we're going to look at the ray tracing results, where I'm just testing out the max theoretical performance here. And there's 2 titles I've got here, and that's Marvel's Midnight Suns, where it performs okay. And in fact, if you turn on FSR2, for instance, you'll get a lot more performance even at 4K. So this card can do ray tracing, but one scenario I wanted to test it out was in Hogwarts, where I know if you turn on ray tracing with all the settings maxed at 4K, you can really extract some differences between GPUs. And here is where the 7700 XT, it literally just choked out. It choked out at these settings alongside the 6700 XT, which choked out at these settings too. And so the 7800 XT didn't have that effect. And this is an important point. And that is that bandwidth that they're cutting down from the 7800 XT to the 7700 XT can matter, especially if you're buying this card thinking, okay, I want 12 gigabytes, more so than 8 gigabytes, going to give me a little bit of future proofing. You may come into some issues in the future where if things are maxing out that bandwidth, it's going to be pointless. And so you're better off getting the 7800 XT because it doesn't have any bottlenecking, at least when it came to a really extremely strenuous test that we're doing here on the VRAM and the bandwidth. And so that's pretty much all the bad news. There's quite a lot of it, but we've got through it all. Let's get on to some good news, at least in relation to this model itself, the Phantom Gaming OC, where we're looking at the temperatures here and the noise, and I was very impressed by what this thing had to offer. Now, it's a very big card, a chunky card, 2.5 slot cooler, and it also goes over 30 centimeters, so you may have some problems fitting it into smaller cases. Just know that the dimensions are quite large. However, the good news here is that if you're looking for the RX 7800 XT Phantom Gaming OC, they're going to perform very similar. Since we're going to look at these power consumption results again, power consumption is very similar to between these two models. And the good thing is here is this card does undervolt very well. So I shaved off roughly 55 watts from the card itself for very minimal performance. And people are asking about the settings I use for undervolting. It's going from around 1150 millivolt down to 1110, and you drop it down to, in this case, the card runs over 2600 megahertz. I think it's 2640 in real world. Drop it down to 2400, and you up the memory speeds roughly 5%. And you'll get a really good configuration for undervolting. Now, in terms of the memory speeds, I tried upping them about 10%. The card just instantly bricked. So 5% memory overclock is about where it's going to be with the RX 7700 XT, at least this sample I tested here. Though, once we undervolt, the temperatures, go back to that temperature chart yet again, the temperatures are just so low, coming under 50 degrees. Even on the hottest point of the GPU, the hotspot, it's coming under 60 degrees. And in fact, it would be the recommended setting for just playing games all day, every day, or even out of the box. The profile is really good, but if you want to set 40% manual fan speeds, you'll have a very slight noticeable noise profile there, if you don't want to undervolt, of course, and you'll get really good results. So extremely good card in terms of the implementation of the cooling and also the noise from ASRock. They've also got a bit of RGB thrown in the front of the card as well as the side of the card, which is not too invasive and it looks very stylish, as well as kind of what I call the R32 GTR boxy type styling on the GPU. So extremely impressed with the GPU that ASRock have implemented here. If you want to go out and get the RX 7800 XT version of this, you're good to go. Though, on the back, we've got a HDMI 2.1 out, 3 DisplayPort 2 outs, and also 2 8-pin connectors. And just like we said in the RX 7800 XT review, those 2 8-pins, I ran them off a single, even testing this one right here, ran them off a single connector and it was absolutely fine. So if you've got a good power supply and you've only got that single 8-pin that splits into 2, you should have no problems with this GPU and running it in that configuration, as opposed to, say, an RX 6800 XT or the RX 7900 XT or XTX. I had to have 2 individual 8-pin connectors traveling to those to feed it power. So now it's time for that conclusion. ASRock, great job on the card itself. RX 7700 XT, the model itself, poor value proposition. And this is where it comes down to, if you're looking for a new card from AMD around this price point, really just save that extra $50 and call it a day. You're going to thank yourself, you're going to thank everyone around you, because the value proposition is just so much better on the 7800 XT. And as we said in the intro, I'm just really confused what AMD is doing here. It makes zero sense in any metric that we've looked at as a PC tech enthusiast. So do let us know in the comments what you guys think about this card, but I think it's just surprising to see this one come out. I don't understand why AMD's done this time around, since you can get 7800 XTs for a pretty good price. It's not like they're traveling way over MSRP when I checked the stock levels and the pricing in both Oz and the US. And the good thing about a model like this is it's not going to come over MSRP, much at all. So I would go for the Phantom Gaming RX 7800 XT. And you guys know I love saving money at Tech Air City, and I love telling people to save money. But in this case, you definitely want to spend that extra 50 bucks if you're going new. Now, all that out of the way, there's probably going to be someone out there. I know there's always that one guy that's going to go out and buy this card, and they're going to say, oh, wow, I made such a bad decision. My life is over. And this is where I'm going to say, like, even though I've been harsh with this card in this review, if you go out and buy this card, right? If you go out and buy it, and you then have some buyer's remorse, don't think of it as a bad thing. Just learn next time to go out and look at reviews and get the best opinion before you go buy something, especially if you've got that buyer's remorse. But that being said, if you buy this card, it's going to perform fine. 1440p and 1080p is going to perform fine. You're not going to have, like, I think there's this thing out there at the moment where if you see a bad review, you think that the card itself is bad. And the RX 7700 XT, it's not a bad graphics card. It can perform absolutely fine. So if you buy this card, you're going to be gaming absolutely fine. It's just that the price is bad. And so that's the main thing here. The price is bad, the product's good. It's just I'd like to see the price come down to at least $399, and then we can play cricket and even play it with blowing some whistles and having some fun. But at $449, it's just really a miss, especially when the company's doing it to themselves. So it's weird, very weird. Anyhow, if you want to go look at the used market, there's going to be a lot of value to extract there as well, especially if we're looking at the RX 6700 XT brand new for a little over $300. You can pick these cards up a lot of the time for $200 or less. The RTX 3070, similar story now, that's come down in price a lot. And so there's just so many good options out there that already exist both on new and used markets. So this one, in terms of its price at $449, I would give it a miss. In terms of the Phantom Gaming OC itself, the RX 7000 series models from ASRock, these cards are doing extremely well. So if you're looking for, say, the 7800 XT, that's going to be a goer. In terms of this one, though, I mean, if it's on sale around $400, it would be okay. But even then, yeah. Whew. And so at the end of the day, guys, that's it. I can't get excited about this product because the value itself is just not there for really anyone. So hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, then be sure to hit that like button and do let us know in the comment section below if you have any other questions or comments about this card. And we've also got here the question of the day, which comes from Accelerant, and they ask, hey, just wondering, has any pin bending happened whilst using the spray can and air can? So they're talking about the recent video we did. We built up this insanely good value for money PC used market. It was dirty. We used our regular sprays that we use, and the sprays themselves, the CRC 556 and also the brake cleaner, the parts cleaner, both of those sprays, I've never had them bend pins on any version of sprays that I've used here. The air blower, however, is a different story. The DataVac in Australia that I use there, that's never bent any pins, but this one I have in Japan here, it's got 2 modes. And on the highest mode, it can actually bend pins because it gets so loud and I've got to wear earmuffs when I use this. So if you get an air blower, especially an electric air blower, and it's really powerful, do be cautious to put it on the high power mode when you're spraying down when you're blowing down the pins on the motherboard. So yeah, I noticed that on a motherboard I did, and I had to bend the pins back. So that's it can happen, guys. And hope that answers that question. And if you stayed this far and you're enjoying that content, as always, be sure to hit that sub button, ring that bell, and I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now. Bye.